Good afternoon, everyone. It's 1 o'clock, and welcome to the webinar that we're having today, where we'll be showcasing ASX, and Paddy Power will be joining us in a second. But just before we do so, I just really wanted to kind of give a quick overview of the website, at the platform at the moment. We've got a good number of clients still active and live at the moment, and accepting investments. We have a massive pipeline of new companies coming through, and we'll be dripping those onto the platform in the coming days and weeks, which we're very excited about, and you'll hear more about from us about that. Most of whom, again, as we've always done, are EIS qualified companies, where you'll be getting a 40% return on your, you're getting a 40% rebate for your income tax if you invest in them. So an investment of €1,000 will actually only cost you €600, which is a great incentive, as we know. But today we have Paddy. So Paddy, if you're in the background, perhaps you can switch on your camera and I'll do a quick intro. ASX has been now on the site for, in two tranches. They did a first one about a month ago now, raised over €600,000 in 24 hours, which was an amazing accomplishment. But Paddy and the ASX team wanted to kind of allow other investors to come on board, because it was there was such a demand for it, and it was so oversubscribed that they did ASX 2, which you will probably know is a safe note, and there's some information on the website about safe notes if you'd like to have a look at that. And so far we've raised 1.4 million in this round as well for them, which is almost 1.45, I think, actually, which is fantastic, and that will go a long way to getting ASX well off the ground, and Paddy will talk to you about the plans for utilisation of the funds as we go on. But so that is ASX. But Paddy, I'll do a very quick intro, as I did last time. Paddy has obviously been very much instrumental in the Paddy Power Betfair business over a large number of years now, as head of communications. As we know, Paddy Power Betfair is a massive company, and I think the last time I was talking about ASX, I talked about the size of it compared to Ryanair, AIB, and Bank of Ireland. The market cap of that Paddy Power Betfair is bigger than all three of those combined, which is shows you the size of the business now. So really, Paddy, welcome to the webinar, and say hello to everyone, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris, and hello everybody, and thanks a million for joining us again. And just to reiterate what Chris said there about, I guess, the reason for ASX 2, which is the second tranche of the crowdfunding, we're very pleasantly surprised and very encouraged, and it was just and grateful for the people for how successful the first raise was. And exactly what he says, one of the main reasons for going the Spark route and trying to crowdfunding effectively was to kind of democratize and let as many people as possible in at the beginning of this. That we believe it's an early stage, and there's obviously risks involved in that. We do believe this is a real chance of success, and I guess by having hundreds of investors at an early stage, first of all, lots of people to come on the journey with you, but also you do have hundreds of advocates out there helping when you're trying to launch a new business. And I love the idea of that, rather than just kind of having kind of a couple of high net worth individuals, which we're happy to have as well, but just having a couple of people in the background. I think it's nice to have it democratized and everything, and that's it's a nice place for us to be, and we're delighted for it, and very encouraged by the support we've had so far, and hopefully I'll give you a couple of updates later on, which should encourage you even more. But so things are going pretty well at the minute. So Chris, what I was going to do is run through the presentation, the introduction on what ASX is, and take it. So if you've seen this before, please watch it again and hang on, because afterwards I'm going to update you on some progress that we've made, a couple of significant milestones that have happened, and just update you at where we are with regards to fulfilling some of the early stage targets that we have. So I've got some good news on that front as well. So it's definitely worth staying in touch. So I'm going to fly through this presentation. There'll be Q&As at the end, which is always the best part, because then I can actually talk about the stuff people actually want to know about, not the things I think they want to know about in the presentation. So Without further ado, I'll try and share my screen. Hopefully I won't hang up on you all.
So while you do that, Paddy, so guys, if anyone wants to ask a question, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your page, as opposed to the chat, and we can kind of monitor the questions coming in. So Paddy, if you can share your screen, I'll switch mine off, and I'll see you the other side.
Is that sharing?
Yeah, perfect, Paddy.
Great. Okay, brilliant. Okay, standard enough presentation here. There's a table of contents and everything like that. So it's going to be sure. You know, I'll just start. You've all seen presentations before. You know exactly what it's going to be. So ASX. First of all, what is it? So it stands for the American Sports Exchange. It can also stand for All Sports Exchange, because their opportunity is probably out beyond America and the American sports as well. But American Sports Exchange is the beginning of it. What we are is basically a sports-focused fintech company, and we're delivering a revolutionary exchange so you can bet and speculate on player performance in every match and every season. Effectively, what we're trying to do is integrate fantasy sports scoring with financial market technology, and to create a virtual stock exchange, which is effectively what it is. And if you think about a stock exchange, we're basing it on the fantasy sports scoring model. So a player's performance or a team's performance, or whatever the stock or share that you're buying virtual shares in, their price, the value of their shares will go up or go down based on their performance on the pitch, which again is based on the fantasy scoring model, which is hugely established, particularly in the US market. So there's a less of an educational journey there for potential players and customers. So mixing the two of them together, it basically brings us to what we'd like to call the next generation of fantasy sports. And you can see on the slide there, we have powered by Accelerator, which is actually very, very important to us. That is Sportradar are a sports data rights company, and what they do is they license the data from various sports out to third-party businesses. Like, for example, betting companies have to use Sportradar to get data on tennis or football or whatever. And because we won an accelerator program run by Sportradar, our prize for that is that they have sponsored us to give us free access to their data until the stage where we get to commercially basically able to pay the big fees that it would be. So it's saving us about 300 grand a year, which is an amazingly beneficial thing for us, especially at an early stage. So the product itself, as I said, it's a next generational model for share. And one of the key things about it, and the key things that our partners are really interested and excited about, is what we have is we've created something where we can have shared value between all stakeholders. So rather than just have, you know, leagues and clubs having their own fans on their own platform, just having that corralled and not having access to other fans outside of that, what we've done is, because this is I guess a platform agnostic and a sport agnostic platform, it means that the various leagues and clubs and media and betting operators and sponsors, or whoever it might be, they do have access to players and fans that have been originated from outside their network, and they come in and play on the same platform. And there's different ways of splitting the revenue between all the different stakeholders in the gig. So which means that it's a shared value proposition, which is exciting for it's as a new way of monetizing this type of gamification. The difference between ASX and what is out there at the moment, this slide actually does it quite well. I mean, the traditional betting, as you can see, you can obviously bet in real time, put your bet down, you win or you lose, and you can bet in play and everything, as we know, but you can't necessarily bet, well, you can't bet on player performance in the same way. In fantasy sports, you basically, you pick your team and the ref blows a whistle and you cross your fingers and hope for the best. So you can't bet on player performance, but you can't change your pick once the lineup is locked in. And with ASX, what we can do, it's a hybrid of the two, basically. You can bet on player performance in all markets. Because we have the Sportradar feeds, the prices will change and the value of the stocks and shares, and the virtual stocks and shares, and the players will change as the match is going on, as the players perform well or badly. And so you can trade and you can change your mind about what team you want to have, or how you want to invest your virtual money. And then the value of your portfolio at the end, when the final whistle goes, or when that game ends, whether it's over a half or a match or a weekend or whatever, when that final whistle goes on that period, then the trades are settled, basically the prices are settled, and whoever's portfolio is worth the most effectively wins. The state of play in the US, I'm sure you have read and heard about the US gambling market, which is very, very big and growing. And that's because if the very, very quick overview, if you aren't aware of it, that until very recently, sports betting was illegal in the States, and that changed in the last couple of years and has created a massive gold rush. There was already a huge black market economy in the States anyway, with people betting on sports. But one of the main reasons for fantasy sports being so popular and exciting, and I'll give you a little bit of information on the next slide, but one of the reasons for that was because sports betting wasn't available mainstream, which meant that people used fantasy as their way of having a punt and getting into the gambling market. Now you can see the growth, the numbers there. It's expected to grow 400% in the next 4 years. That's 400% from a big number. New Jersey was one of the first states to legalize, and that's only 2% of the US population, and 3.2 billion in online fantasy sports gaming in 2019, and there's a margin of about 7% on that. So it shows scale of the opportunity and how fast it's growing. So they call it a gold rush, and that's probably about the right description. So this is the market opportunity, as I mentioned. It's in the US. It's huge. It's growing fast. It's an immature market, but it's maturing at a pace. So if you compare it, it probably goes in the same journey actually that the UK and the Irish market. The Irish and the UK market are pretty much the same. But the UK market went on over a period of decades. The Australian market followed straight after over a period of, I don't know, a decade or less than a decade. And the US market is going in the same journey, but it'll be over a much shorter period because of technology effectively, and it's a new generation, so it's starting from a much further on place, that there's less kind of legacy tradition with regard to the way people bet and the way betting is legislated effectively. So it'll be legislated for a new era, and is being, which means it's a much faster growth and faster journey, and with that comes opportunity, and with that comes massive consolidation in the US market. You can see there's, one way to describe it is that there's media companies trying to become betting companies, and betting companies trying to become media companies, and it's all a bit all over the shop at the moment. Hasn't really settled down just yet, and it's just, there's a bit of a clamoring for new product and for anything that might engage customers, and that's kind of exactly where we come in. You can see here more kind of stats. Just talked about the two. It's very much a two-horse race over there with regard to fantasy sports betting, and that's FanDuel, and which is actually part of the Paddy Power Betfair group now, and DraftKings, who's their big competitor, and the two of those are head-to-head all the time. DraftKings has a 20 billion valuation or thereabouts, and FanDuel, while it's amongst the Flutter family, its spin-out value is about 11.2 billion, and there's pressure on. You might have read in the press recently, there's pressure on the company, on Flutter, to spin out and IPO FanDuel separately, because investors feel that it's undervalued compared to its big competitor, even though it's bigger and growing faster than DraftKings. So it's just a huge market, and the growth it's almost mind-bogglingly big. You can see in terms of the users of fantasy, it's very encouraging that there's so many players regularly in the US, and even in the UK, there's 5 million fantasy football players, but in the US, 60 million fantasy NFL players across the USA and Canada, and each of them spend on average $500 per player per season. That's a lot of money spent, and a lot of those will appreciate a new way of gamifying, I guess, fantasy sports. So in terms of gaming and revenue, or the multiple gaming and revenue avenues, so the way we know betting is that it's quite binary and short term. So you put your money down and you cross your fingers, you hope for the best, and you win or you lose. And that's kind of because it's based on fixed odds models. That's like a definitive, the bookie decides, or the bookie says, I think this is a 33% chance. I mean, if it's 2-1 or whatever, and then that being the case, then you put your money down, you think it's a good odds or bad odds, and you're right or you're wrong. And that's how your bet goes. But how an athlete performs can't be covered in the fixed odds model. So basically, over 100 million people are kind of forced to leave the real world and enter a fantasy one to speculate on the most important feature is how your team is performing, isn't it? How your player performs, and as a fan, that's what you talk about with your friends, and that's where fan engagement comes in. So the fact that we're able to cross that bridge from traditional betting into fantasy betting and still offer you an opportunity to gamify. I'm going to keep using the word gamify, by the way, because that's what all the cool kids do nowadays. It's all about gamification, but it's it's very engaging, and that's the holy grail. If you can create a platform that's engaging to players on it, partners will be very interested in that, because partners and big sports media companies and big sports franchises, what they want is to create a platform for their customers so they'll stay on their platform all the time. And hopefully that platform kind of cater to all their needs, and that's again where we come in. Now, so as you can see, so we're basically again selling it a bit more. We kind of make fantasy sports just a bit more real. So because it's based on, it looks a bit like a stock exchange, because that's effectively what it is. It's the look and feel is based on what your Apple iPhone stocks and shares screen might look like. You buy, sell, speculate, trade, back your opinion up. The way it can work, I can give you a very simple example of how it might work. It might work with the people on this call. And as I say, there's 50 or 100 people on this call. We might all say, well, let's have a game. We'll set it up. We'll all throw in a tenner each. Just say there's 1,000 in the pot. Then what we'll do is we will set up the structure. We'll say, well, do you know what? Let's pay the first 5. We get prizes down to 5th place. That's fine. Set that up. And then the platform fee taken away by ASX. And that's a very start, much like a poker room. And then we all get a virtual 10 grand in shares, or in cash, so we can go in there and we can use that 10 grand to buy players, build up a team, and then we'll sit down and we watch, I don't know, whatever Euros matches on today. We'll sit down and watch that. And depending on how the players we've picked play, the value of our portfolio goes up and down. We can trade them in real time during play. And when the ref blows the final whistle in that match, then it all settles down. And it turns out that Chris has the most valuable portfolio, which is probably very unlikely. But anyway, Chris is the most valuable portfolio and he wins the prize and whatever. And the prizes get divvied down the way. And all during that time, we can see how each other are doing. We can slag each other off and send each other messages through the platform as well to basically, I don't know, probably not encourage each other, because, you know, generally we'd be probably taking great enjoyment out of somebody else's team going pear-shaped. In terms of teams, well, our team is, this is one of the most encouraging things I think for everybody, is regardless of me, there are some proper grown-up people who have taken a real punt and come to join us. So Conal Flood is our CTO, was basically exchange trading and modeling in JP Morgan, so building exchanges just like this. And he's come on board as CTO. Julie Allison is she was an ex-colleague of mine in Paddy Power Betfair, brilliant at commercial and marketing strategy. Mike Griffin, ex-CEO of the Racing Post, commercial director of the Racing Post, is running the show and keeping us all on the straight and narrow. And Anthony Ponterera at the bottom there, he's in as COO. He's on the ground already. Unbelievably good contacts and access he's given us already to various big players at senior levels across the sports industry, which has been brilliant. Obviously, Ryan McCumber, he's part of the Hype program, and I'll come on to talk about them in a minute, because that's a really, really important part of our journey too. So a proper team there, and we're growing out the team below that as well, which is part of what this fundraising is for, to allow us to grow out that team so that we can really go after this opportunity and exploit it. So Hype. So I mentioned the Sport Radar Accelerator program earlier on. The Hype Accelerator program it's ongoing. It's been hugely beneficial so far. So effectively what Hype is, it's for sports tech companies, and they've partnered up with some of the biggest kind of media companies and things like that are kind of Hype sponsors. And what they do is they run a program whereby the companies that they select get a chance to pitch to their partners, which we did. We got through that process and we were chosen by 6 of their partners. We were the most chosen of all the sports tech firms there. And by chosen, I mean is that these partners have said, okay, we're really interested in what you're doing. We want to sit down, we want to work out how a pilot might look. How do we do that? And how do we work towards a partnership? So that's been brilliant, and that actually comes to fruition. I'll tell you a bit about that later on, about where we are with it. So it means we've had access at the highest level to some of these major franchises like DAZN, the biggest streaming company in the world, Sinclair Media, which is one of the biggest media companies in the US, the Knights, the Phillies, and some big, huge kind of sports franchises in the States and Canada. And what that's done is just given us access to them, whereby they've chosen that they want to speak to us rather than us knocking on the door going, hey, look what we've got. Can we come in and try and sell it to you? So it's just been a much easier journey to getting potential partnerships. Then financial projections. I mean, I lick my finger and hold it in the air. Who knows? I've told you about the size of the market. This is either going to be spectacular or it's not. I think it's going to be quite binary. I can't see us limping along in a couple of years' time or 3 years' time. I think we'll hopefully smash this opportunity, and it could be any number. How many zeros are on your typewriter? That's the kind of way to think about this at this early stage. The market is huge. The opportunity is huge. If we get with the right partners, the scalability of the number of users and people on their sites and platforms is huge. So everything is big, big, big. And the idea of this fundraise is to allow us to basically get through to the next fundraise. It's as simple as that. It's a step-by-step process. The next fundraise will be a Series A, where we'll be able to raise tens of millions to allow us to properly exploit this opportunity. The way we do that is through successfully executing on these partnership opportunities that we have. Once you create one partnership with a major partner, then what that does, it not only validates the product, even though we've already done that on a testing basis, but also provides the metrics that are required to be able to multiply up to see what the potential value of this company could be. So why invest in ASX? Well, hopefully the track record of the founders will give you a bit of encouragement, because we have the ambition, the expertise, and the profile and the connections to deliver a decent return for investors. Market size is bananas, as I said. It's like, it's mind-bogglingly big. The growth rates are huge in the US. It's a feature-rich technology that's scalable, and there's partnerships discussions are at a senior level are going on with 6 major brands at the minute, and they will come to fruition in September, as I'll tell you a bit more about in a sec. And we've also got a couple of industry veterans have thrown a few quid in as well. So we've got good traction, good momentum, and I think we've got a proper chance.
Great, Paddy, well done. Thank you very much indeed. I think you were saying you were going to give us a bit of an update as well. Do you want to talk about some of the other elements that you may switch your screen off, I think, probably by now.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
And talk about some of the other aspects that are happening, and we've made some announcements of these either through LinkedIn or through an update on the through our platform. But I think it'd probably be useful to give everybody an overview of them anyway.
Yeah, the main, I'll start off just with startups. It's all kind of about team, product, and opportunity, I suppose. And we have some progress to announce on all of those topics. So I may as well do that first, and then I'll come to my big reveal at the end. Anyway, so teams, that we're on, devs being hired ongoing at the time. We do have a dev team in operation that's been grown out all the time. We just hired a solutions architect from a prominent IT infrastructure firm, which is important. Obviously, compliance is going to be very important to us, and it's key because especially we're international, so we have to obviously stay on top of regulations and legislation in different jurisdictions and different nationalities. That's important. So we've secured a US attorney to represent and advise us on regulatory, legal, and compliance issues there. And we've also secured, actually, which is important for the Series A raise, which we're trying to work on at the moment, even before this one is closed, but secured an investment representative with senior ties to New York and Miami tech investment scene, which is good. And also a Boston-based community digital manager for fans, because the kind of the hotbed of sports betting is kind of up there in that kind of northeast kind of area of the States. In terms of agency, we can't do everything ourselves, obviously. So agency-wise, US and Maltese law firms specialized in sports entertainment have been engaged. We're opening our first US office in Miami in August. We will also have a satellite in Boston. And we think it's important to have the boots on the ground to develop those club league and fan partnerships, and also to go after the funding, and also a regional office in London, obviously, to assist with English and European soccer rollout. We have a digital marketing agency for sports, 10th Man, a Dublin-based agency run by my ex-colleague Ken Robertson from Paddy Power. They're come aboard to help us with branding and just setting our marketing tone and our message and all that kind of important thing. And they'll obviously be brilliant creatively with campaigns and things. And a PR agency for PR and advocacy, Red Knot, who are good kind of industry, well-known, proper grown-up PR agency to help us with that kind of thing. Now, from a product point of view, we've so far invested quite heavily in finalizing the user journey. There's a bit of work to do on that, and that's been done, because we have quite firm timeline updates, because I'll tell you why in a minute. Android and iOS apps. The rollout is ongoing, complete. And I'm just going through this checklist because I want to tell you everything. And also we're working quite hard on payment integrations and partners just to make sure that we're able to integrate with the most appropriate payment partner for whatever jurisdiction we go into. In terms of the opportunity and partnerships, we're in our own kind of outside of hype discussions with PGA, ATP, and NASCAR. And then within hype, we're in the kind of what would you call it, late stages of discussions with DAZN, Rogers Media, Sinclair Media, and the hype program that finishes in September is when all those pilots happen. So that's our race. We everything has to be cool, ready, slick, ready to go in September, because that's when we find out that we've been successful, hopefully. And now I want to tell you mostly about the esports partnership, because this is much more important than it sounds at first, because it all sounds a little bit boring, that with a big long press release about our strategic alliance with esports technology, which is a NASDAQ listed esports technology company, funny enough. And what they do is they're the leading provider of esports wagering products. But what this means is I think you can easily understand how important Sport Radar is to the data that we have that kind of, fuels the exchange. So what esports technologies do is they give us the exact same data, but for esports, which doesn't really exist because there's no data before this. So they're the ones who have this data. They've signed we've come into a strategic alliance with us to do that. And that means that we have unique access to the esports data. So we can create the exact same thing as I just presented to you there, but for esports. And this is esports whereby a lot of people of my generation anyway don't really understand it, but they fill Madison Square Garden with 40,000 fans looking at people playing Xbox against each other effectively. But it is one of the fastest growing things. The average age of the esports user is only 26. I mean, they're digital native, they're young, they're hip, it's a new generation, and behaviorally, a new generation, which is going to drive the growth in this sector for years to come. We could see recently with the likes of the Robinhood and eToro and the gamification of stocks and shares. And that's just behaviorally how this generation is coming through. And it's just a bit different from what we're used to. But esports is the playground of where these people play. And effectively, we can develop that relationship and create the gamification of the esports. It could just be a company in its own right. I mean, it is a massive potentially opportunity.
Very exciting, isn't it? Very exciting. And that announcement was only made just a few days ago, and it's already kind of starting to percolate through to the business, obviously, Paddy. And it's a very exciting time for you.
Oh, it's amazing. Like it just seems that almost every day something's happening. Like there's something else that's cool and exciting and potentially and it's just there's loads of steps we have to get through to get to the next stage, and that's fine, and we're getting there, but everything just seems to be rolling in the right direction. And it's just really encouraging when you get like a NASDAQ company happily engaging and entering a partnership with you. It does give you that validation. It does give you that that kind of kick up the arse a little bit as well to say, oh geez, come on, let's properly go after this again. It's that encouragement that really does help, and it creates momentum, and even amongst our own staff and amongst the people that we're hoping to hire, in terms of persuading the good people to join, then all these things help with that momentum.
Very good. Very good. Listen, we've got a fistful of questions coming in here. We almost certainly won't get through them all, but nevertheless, we'll try and do a good few of them. So, first one: what percentage of each trade will ASX take?
That'll be probably definitively decided on a partner by partner basis, and depending on how we figure out the commercial model. I mean, you could work off of each, well, it may not be structure of each trade actually, but just listen to the wording of the question. But in terms of, say, much in the same way as I described in the example earlier, as a poker room might work, very simple Simon maths, we work off like a 10% take out of the pot. It may be less than that. Probably won't be more than that, but it may be less than that. It all depends on the commercial deal we strike with an individual partner.
Very good. Very good.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. To what extent will ASX be able to influence the price on offer, or is it 100% determined by an algorithm? So could you just maybe go into a bit of detail on that? I know we spoke about it previously.
So a good way to think about it is this. Okay, so if there's an element of both, right? It's based on the fantasy sports scoring system, and the main reason for that is to protect the, I guess, the integrity of the player of me playing against you or whatever. So let's use Gareth Bale as an example, as we used earlier. So if Gareth Bale is playing for Wales and everybody buys Bale, obviously his price will go up, right? And his price has initially been decided based on historical stats and data that we expect. Based on his historical performance, the algorithm says that Bale should be worth a tenner, right? So everyone buys him at a tenner. His price does go up a bit, but his more than 80% of the fluctuation in his price will be based on his actual performance on the pitch. So it's which is important because, you know, if it was the other way and everybody sold Bale and his price went down, but then he scored a hat-trick, as somebody who had bought Bale, you would expect his value to increase after playing so well. So I think it's more than 80% of it is based on performance, but there actually is a free market element to the fluctuations.
Excellent, very good. So it helps with the whole market mechanics and prevents probably market abuse and price
exactly.
arbitrage.
It should stop manipulation of prices and things like that as well. Yeah, so which is important, because I think as a player, as a recreational player on this platform, what happens in front of your eyes on the pitch has to be reflected in the trades that you've made on the app.
Brilliant.
When will the product be publicly released, Paddy?
I would think most likely with the pilots will be the first stage of that, and it may happen before that in some sort of further test mode before, maybe potentially in August, but certainly in September is when it'll be properly out there.
Okay, very good.
Excellent. Just on the sports on offer, what kind of is your initial offering in sports, and what do you feel coming down the line in terms of questions here? In terms of, are you looking at cricket, ice hockey, MMA, loads of different sports? Which ones can you see are going to be the first ones, and what are you going to grow into, Paddy?
I think you could probably take it on trust that there'll be certainly a soccer element over this part of the world. And in the US, it could be any of the US sports, because it really is the exact same engine, the exact same technology. And once we have the data feed, you just plug it in and press play, and it does its thing. So I'd say looking at the big sports, NFL, NHL, NBA, and potentially cricket as well outside, but that will be maybe further down the line for us.
Regarding the model, can you buy a rookie, for example, and hold them until they become the main player in the team with a maximum value?
No, because this is one of the things where it's different from other exchanges that have gone before, is that there's a finite period for each game, if you like. Now, if you created a game amongst an potentially infinite number of players, whereby the game went on for 5 years, I guess theoretically that's possible, but I'd imagine it's much more likely that well, certainly in the early stages. Look, everything's possible, but at an early stage, in the first iteration, I think we reckon that it's going to be probably for shorter periods where these games will start and end.
So more likely you buy it at the beginning of a start of a tournament and finish at the end of a tournament, or even a start of a match and finish at the end of a match.
Yeah, and my own gut feel is, just from my experience in the industry, is that actually to be far more interest in shorter games, because even though from say start of the season everybody's interested in who's going to win the league, but no one really wants to wait 6 or 8 months or whatever to find out whether they're better or not. So I think that we'd probably find shorter term games be most popular.
With that, there's another question here. Can you hold shares in a player after the event finishes? So it really is depending on what you've decided as the period of time that you're going to play this game for, I presume.
Yeah, effectively, and you can go on yourself, can set up a game and put a specified time period on it too. So you're in control of the parameters of your game.
Brilliant. How protected is the technology in the IP, Paddy?
Well, as software, I believe it can't be IP'd or protected too much, but the technology, I guess, that the algorithm behind it is protected, and also, I guess, is there intellectual property in the team? That's quite a good team, I think.
Yeah, certainly a hard one to replicate.
Any concerns over the regulatory interest and risk, and how are you mitigating this, Paddy? Well, you talked about kind of having a compliance officer on board anyways, but I'll let you answer that in full though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would say concern is the wrong word, but we're conscious of it. Like, it's the boring part of it, isn't it? But it's important. So we have engaged, and we don't want to spend all our money at this stage on fees and all that kind of thing, but we have engaged. We have engaged lawyers, and we have engaged compliance officers, and that to make sure to stay on top, to make sure we're just not caught out by something stupid.
Very good. And just on the exit, what is the likely exit for an investor? Would you consider floating the business, or will you be bought out? Who are the likely candidates to buy you out, and why would they do so?
Okay, well, it's really hard to know exactly yet, but I think more likely bought out than float, I would say. So the way I see this journey going is that we get a Series A raise, which obviously puts a valuation on the company, hopefully in the tens of millions or higher. Who knows? But and then from there, you work towards the next. I think at that stage, then you become significant enough that you're noticed by the potential buyers, who would be, in theory, the likes of the big fantasy sports companies, or I think maybe even more likely one of the large media companies.
Excellent.
Question here: is Paddy Power Betfair financing any part of the company, and why are they not financing it in full? And I suppose that kind of also comes in with a question: what's your continuing involvement with Flutter as well? Then, Paddy, please.
Okay, two things there. No, they're not. This is I've gone off and done this on my solo run. I'm still working part-time as a brand ambassador for Paddy Power Betfair, and they're fully on top of are fully supportive of me going off and creating this new business. And there's no conflict there. I hope there will be a conflict in time to come that we're big enough to be in some way, I don't know. I think it'd be complementary rather than competing with any of the Paddy Power Betfair brands or the Flutter brands at the moment. I think most likely this will be a hybrid between some of the opportunities that they have already. With regard to why aren't they financing, I guess it's one of the reasons why this opportunity is so real is because what happens in this industry, as long with lots of other industries, there is such speed and such pace of growth for the big firms, even in new markets and things like that. They kind of don't have time or bandwidth to hold hands of startups and to get people off the ground and things like that, because they're just too busy, and they would prefer to step in at a later stage when the product is developed and pay much more for it, but to buy a finished product rather than to go on that journey, because they just have so many other things to concentrate on.
And just to clarify, your part-time, it's only a couple of days a month, I think, isn't it?
3 days a month, yeah.
Very good. I have a question just on a recent event, the Open Championship. How would ASX work on an event like that, a sports event like that?
Like the golf.
The golf, yeah.
Well, I guess you'd set up the parameters of the game. You'd buy a suite of players. You'd spend, just say if we all put, like I said before, if we all threw a tenner in or whatever, and then we had, the pot was 10 grand in virtual money, and just say John Ram cost, I don't know, $1,000 or what, I can't work out what price he would have been at the start, but you buy various players along the way as they perform. Once we have the data feed into the engine, as they perform, their prices will fluctuate the whole way through it. So you could trade them, like, you know, I presume we'd be on top of it. Well, the data would probably beat the picture quality you'd be watching. You'd probably see what's going to happen off the tee when the price changes dramatically before he hits it out of bounds. But you can trade in and out of certain players the whole way around the course. And then at the end, when John Ram holds that winning putt, whatever way your portfolio lies will rank you as to where you finish in the competition. Brilliant,
excellent.
Do you have first mover advantage, or are there any other existing companies or similar startups that can compete with you?
We have lots of advantages with regard to, say, the Sport Radar, as I said, and also with regard to hype. So that gives us a good head start on any potential competitors. There is one competitor called Jockmark, which is an early stage startup in the States as well. And I think it's quite encouraging, actually. They just raised 10 million at a 50 million valuation a month or 2 months ago, and they have what I would consider an inferior product to us, and they don't have some of the same opportunities that we have. So I think that's a very encouraging thing. But at the same time, I do understand that that puts us in a bit of a race, which is okay.
Very good.
Excellent. And what do you see as the biggest risks to hitting your targets?
Sorry, I missed that one, Fergal. Just started when
Yeah,
you broke up.
what do you see as the biggest risks to hitting the targets and our challenges? So what challenges do you kind of foresee, Paddy?
I think there's a couple of things, right? There's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of various strands to the opportunity, and it's for us to, I think, we have to stay focused on the while we want to keep trucking along at the grand vision. We have to stay focused on getting step by step. So we do have to basically execute these partnership opportunities that we do have for September. We're working as fast as we can. The timelines are completely acceptable according to all the devs and the people who actually understand these things much better than I do. But we are well on track to doing the development work that we need to do to be able to produce a top class presentation and pilot scheme or whatever that will hopefully end up in a partnership. And I guess one challenge will be if we don't manage to do that. Now, I'd be very surprised if we don't manage to at least successfully execute one of them. I think the way the discussions have gone so far have been really, really promising, but I can't guarantee or promise anything, but I would be very encouraged by how the discussions have gone so far. So I think that would be okay. I don't know. I don't know what I'd be most worried about, to be honest, because everything seems positive at the moment, and maybe I'm missing something massive. But so far, the wins are behind us, and it does seem that we're gathering decent momentum. I'm pretty sure that our strategy is right to have a dual strategy with regard to straight to consumer and as I mentioned earlier. I think that much as a partnership thing will be a massive accelerant to us, that actually us going straight to consumer too, and that it means that we're not as reliant on other people's timelines, because we're obviously in a rush, in a far bigger rush than some of the big media companies we're talking with. And I think also the esports is just a recent massive opportunity that we've just come across, and that has given us, as I said, a unique opportunity that nobody else has. You asked a bit earlier about possible competitors, and in the esports space there just aren't any. So that's a great opportunity too.
Brilliant.
So what is we will just have time for one more question, I think, Paddy, and then we'll wrap it up. So what is the exit plan for the investors down the road? So where do you see this being sold? How will that happen? When do you think that might happen? What's the plan?
So I think that this what I think will happen. I think you got to consider Series A as the start. So when we got our next big fund, it sounds weird because we're only finishing off a seed funding round, if you like, but when we get our next funding round, that's kind of the start of the real the real exciting part of it. Because I was about to say roller coaster, the wrong word to use, but the exciting part of it, I think, because I think then you're basically talking about serious investment, tens of millions of investment, which means you can really just accelerate everything. And then once you put your head above the parapet at that stage, and you've got a huge amount of users on because it ultimately comes down to the number of users you get on the exchange, because that's the compelling part for potential suitors. And I think at that stage, then you're talking turkey, if you like, and then I think it become attractive as an acquisition proposition.
Absolutely, very exciting. So, okay, listen, guys, we're running out of time, and so Paddy, thanks very much for answering all of those questions. There were a stack load more there that we could have asked, but as I say, time has beaten us. So, thanks very much for answering all of those. The campaign is open for another 3 days. Closes on Friday night. If you'd like to invest, then please do so, and quickly before time does beat you. But thanks very much, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks very much, guys. See you soon.